Good morning and welcome to Kirk Mid Morning this Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. My name is Aida Munzatsi and I hope that you're having a wonderful day. Now remember, we are also coming to you live. That's on Facebook as well as YouTube, Kirk TV Kenya. Feel free to be part of this morning's conversation as we bring you hope and definitely resilience. And on set, I'm joined by Milka Motuko. Karibu sana Milka.
Asante, thank you very much.
And it's a pleasure to have you on set this morning.
I am humbled to be here.
And we definitely look forward to hearing your story. We are looking forward to giving hope to our audience.
Absolutely.
All right, now, just briefly, you may introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. Hi everyone, my name is Milka Mwikali Mutuku. I am a counseling psychologist. I am a cancer survivor. I've recently graduated from Kenyatta University. I pursued a Bachelor of Arts in Counseling Psychology. Mm-hmm. I am a cancer advocate, mm-hmm. a cervical cancer advocate, mm-hmm. as well as a mental health advocate. Mm-hmm. Yes, that's me in a nutshell.
Wonderful. That is quite an intro. Yeah, but as I mentioned earlier on, we definitely look forward to learning from you and just listening and just listening to your story, even as we talk about cancer, that is cervical cancer. And coincidentally, January is actually cervical cancer awareness month.
Yes.
Now, with all the introduction and with all the titles that you just shared with us, mm-hmm. I just want us to first of all start you as a cancer survivor. Yeah. Probably just share with us your journey. Mm-hmm. When were you diagnosed with that is a cervical cancer?
Mm-hmm. My journey started back in 2018. Mm-hmm. I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis.
Okay.
So back then, I didn't know it's rheumatoid arthritis at mm-hmm. first. Mm-hmm. So I had very severe joint pains. Uh-huh. I could not do anything I couldn't walk. Mm-hmm. I could not even lift my phone. Mm-hmm. I could not hold anything. Mm-hmm. I could not even bathe myself. Like I had mm-hmm. severe joint pains, mm-hmm. and I went to a rheumatologist. Mm-hmm. And after many tests, mm-hmm. I was diagnosed with something called juvenile idiopathic arthritis. Okay. When they say juvenile idiopathic arthritis, they say it means, in layman's language, it means they do not know what form it will take. Okay. It is a form of arthritis, but in the meantime, they're not sure of what form it will take. Mm-hmm. And with time, I was on drugs, I kept going for tests, and finally, they diagnosed me with rheumatoid arthritis. Okay. And now I started the treatment for mm-hmm. the same. Mm-hmm. I was in hospital every month for infusions because my joints were painful. Mm-hmm. But now with the treatment, it started becoming better. Now okay. I could walk, mm-hmm. I could use my phone, mm-hmm. I could do things. I actually went back to school. Mm-hmm. I had just joined campus then. Okay. After around a whole year of treatment for rheumatoid arthritis, just one random day in the hospital, I told my rheumatologist, I feel like my groin area is swollen. Okay. Out of the blues, I just told him, I'm mm-hmm. feeling like mm-hmm. it is swollen. Mm-hmm. And he was like, since when? I'm like, I don't know since when, but I feel like it's not mm-hmm. okay. Mm-hmm. And he started asking me questions. Do you sweat at night? Do you have any other symptoms? I'm like, yes, I sweat at night, okay. but I am a student. Mm-hmm. I live in a bed sitter. It is just
probably because of
absolutely. It's just mm-hmm. the room, the small room and the heat. And he told me, no, I'm going to send you for tests. And after that, we can determine whether it is something serious okay. or not. Mm-hmm. And he was very calm about it. Mm-hmm. I was so used to hospitals that I didn't mm-hmm. think it's a big thing. Okay. I thought it's one of the symptoms of arthritis.
Arthritis.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I went for tests. Every time I would go for tests, because I was so used to this, I've been doing this a whole year. Mm-hmm. Every time I get my results, I would open, I check. I already knew what
by yourself?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I was a small medic. So I could just check. I know what UCEs are. Mm-hmm. I know what neutrophils are. Mm-hmm. And every time I will check my results. Mm-hmm. So this time when he sends me for a biopsy, I take the results. I remember I was with my sister.
Okay.
And as usual, I open my results. Okay. But this time, it's not things I'm used to. It's not the language I am used to. Uh-huh. So I'm like, what is this new thing? Mm-hmm. And I take my phone. Mm-hmm. And I go to...
what word were you Googling?
I do not remember the word, but it was just something that was new to me. Mm-hmm. It was something that was new to me. And I took my phone mm-hmm. and I Googled. And that was the first mistake I did. Uh-huh. I would not advise anyone to Google. You are not the doctor. Do not Google.
Yeah.
Just let the doctor give you the diagnosis. But I did.
Okay.
And I remember I was in the washroom. I opened that.
Is it in the same hospital, or had you gone home at that point?
No. I am in the hospital.
Okay.
I've just gotten my results. And then I've gone to the washroom to help myself. And in the meantime, I'm checking my results before I go to my rheumatologist.
Okay.
So I open the results and I Google. And the first word that comes is cancer. And below cancer, all I can see is it leads to death. And I remember I sat down in that washroom and I broke down. I broke down because all I could think of is I am going to die.
Yeah.
I was so used to arthritis. I had already gotten used to the pain. I had already gotten used to the medication.
Okay.
And I knew how to handle that. I knew how to keep myself warm. I knew how to take warm liquids. I knew how to exercise. But I did not know how to handle cancer. Because what do you do when you get a diagnosis that says you have cancer? I am only, at that time, I was around 20, 21. I'm like, I have not even lived half my life.
Yeah.
I have not accomplished anything. So what do you mean I have cancer? And I sat in that toilet and I cried. And I remember I was with my sister Kezia. And Kezia did not know what to tell me. Because what do you tell someone that has...
Both of you were in the washroom?
We were in the washroom together. And she did not know what to tell me. What do you tell your younger sister that has just gotten a diagnosis? And I remember I sat in that toilet until my mom came.
Okay. So at that point, it's okay. You've Googled.
Yeah.
You've seen that it's cancer.
Yes.
Though you still do not know what type of cancer.
Yes.
Were you hopeful that probably I'll go and seek some other diagnosis, or was it that for you?
In that moment, I don't think. I did not think of anything else. I did not think of a second opinion or any other test. In that moment, all I saw was just darkness in front of me. Because I was, in my head, the results could not be wrong. And I did not foresee, like I did not see anything past that. It was just total darkness and death in front of me. Yeah, so my mom came in and she hugged me. And we all cried, and then we went to my rheumatologist. And I remember I was really tearing up all the way to my rheumatologist's office. And when he saw me, he used to call me my daughter.
Like a confirmation.
Absolutely. Yeah. For me, that was a confirmation. When he saw me and saw me crying, he did not even talk to me. He held me, hugged me by the side, and told me, Mutuku, Osavinya. Osavinya is Kamba for take heart, be strong. You can do this. But in that moment, you do not feel like you can do this.
Yeah, true.
In that moment, you are broken to your last
like
bone.
Nothing matters at that particular.
Nothing matters. Absolutely. No word can bring you out of the shell or the hole that you have gotten into. And I remember sitting in that office with my mother and my sister. And this was just a year after we lost my dad. This was 2020, early 2020 in February. And in 2019, February, we had lost my dad. And my dad had left a huge medical bill that we were still trying to sort. So in that moment, you're thinking, how will we handle the medical bill of this?
Yeah.
How will we pay the tests? Cancer means chemo. Will I even survive chemo? And I remember I did not hear anything that my rheumatologist said in that moment. I remember when I came back to my senses, he just said, now you need to see an oncologist. And every single time I could hear him speak, I would just hear death, finality, nothing past this. But my mother and my sister were very strong. We stood up, we went to the oncologist that I had been referred to. And I remember sitting in that waiting room and thinking to myself, what next?
And that was the same day?
The same day. It is the same day. I have gotten my results. I have Googled. I have gone to my rheumatologist. He confirms that what I had Googled is correct. He does not know what type of cancer it is, because you have to go for PET scan for staging and confirmation. And now he sent me to my oncologist for further review. So I remember walking into my oncologist's office, and I am still crying. I am crying. And she looks at me and says, "How old are you?" And I say, "I'm 21. And she says, "Okay." And she looks at the results and takes a minute and keeps quiet, and then looks at my mother, my sister, and me and says, "I am sorry to inform you, but this is cancer. We do not know what stage it is. We do not know what type it is, but it is cancer. And what we can do right now is admit you immediately for further review." So my mom is confused. She does not know what exactly this means.
At that point, it keeps on hitting, like
Absolutely.
word by word, bit by bit.
Every word is like is like tearing you apart. Every word she says tears you apart. So I remember she says, so my mom had called my godfather. My godfather is called Mr. Kariuki. So Mr. Kariuki comes in just as the doctor is explaining what exactly this means. So Daktari says that, so what happens, the only way of treatment is chemotherapy. And chemotherapy has side effects on the body. And my mom is listening, and my sister is listening, and she says, so the hair might fall off. And she says,
they're giving you all this information during your first day of diagnosis?
Yes, this is my first day of diagnosis. I am seated there with my mother and my sister, and Mr. Kariuki has come in. And Daktari says, your hair might fall off, your skin might react to the medicine, your nails might react or cut. We cannot assure you of anything in this treatment, but this is the only mode of treatment you can get. And I remember Mr. Kariuki, just after she finished, said, this will not happen to her, in Jesus' name. And Daktari laughed and said, amen.
Because he knew, he was like, there's no option, I mean, these days.
Absolutely. So my godfather had already been diagnosed with cancer. Before. So he had done chemotherapy, he had done radiotherapy, he had gone to India, and he knew the whole process of cancer. So when Daktari was saying this and this will happen, he was like, no, I am cancelling it in the name of Jesus. The hair I am cancelling it in the name of Jesus. And I remember we left the office, and Daktari said, let's go admit her right now. And I was admitted. And now we had to run tests. We had to go to Aga Khan. We had to confirm the stage. So we go to Aga Khan. We book a PET scan. We do all the formalities, the documentations. And I go in for PET scan. And I go through the whole process. And results come out in a few days. And I am told that I am at stage 3.
And now, just before, definitely, as you wait for the result, I mean, as you put it, it took a few days for the result to be out. What are you doing, like, as you wait for the exam? What's in your mind? What's your family doing at that particular time?
People are coming. I am admitted in hospital that time. People are coming. People, every day, new faces. Everyone is sorry. And in my head, the last time I saw people coming like this is when my dad had passed on. And this was just days before he passed. And it was a form of goodbye. Sorry, you're getting here, but goodbye. We've come to see you. So
for you, there was nothing, like you were not hopeful?
I was not hopeful at all. I knew this is it, and this is the end of me. And I had already, it was very hard to admit it, but I was coming to terms that this is the end of me. This is as far as I go in life. And every day people were coming and saying, sorry, Milka, you got this, but I did not think I got this. My Mr. Kariuki will come and say, you know, God is in control. I'm like,
at
what?
that time, was God making sense?
He was not making sense at all. He says, God is in control. In my head, I'm thinking, what God allows this to happen?
To someone.
And my bishop comes in and he prays, and Mama Kanisa says, you know, everything has a reason. And I'm thinking, what reason would you give someone for a 20-year-old that is just has lost her dad, has come from a diagnosis of rheumatoid arthritis, and now cancer? What God has a purpose for that? I could not see his purpose in this. I was shattered. I was broken. My every bone was literally tearing. And I remember I would cry myself to sleep at night because, of course, after visiting hours, people go home.
Yeah.
But I would cry in that hospital bed because there was no tomorrow for me. People say, you see, you know, you can see a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
There was no light. There
There
was no light at the end of my tunnel. And it was such a dark time for me. I remember I literally did not text my friends. I literally withdrew from everything. My sister will come with her friends to just make me laugh in the hospital bed. But after that, I go into a cocoon of sadness, because for me, it was finished. Like, that was the end of me. Yeah. So that was the 2 days, the 3 days before the results come in. So the results come in, and Daktari, now my oncologist, takes, and she tells me, you have Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 3S. So stage 3S is the stage just before we go into stage 4. Absolutely. And I am thinking, how did we get to stage 3? Where is stage 1? Where is stage 2?
Okay, now for just to take you back, were you, I mean, when you went to your rheumatologist, that's when you told him how you were feeling?
Yes.
Did you, I mean, as you put it, how did you get to stage 3? Were there any other signs like before? Even the diagnosis of rheumatoid,
Yeah.
did you have any other signs?
For rheumatoid, the only signs I had were my joint pains. It started with my wrists, then my knuckles, and it went down to every joint. You will feel severe pain. Like, I would not stretch my hand. And because I had now become inactive, my muscles were wearing off. Like, you could see, I am so thin because the muscles are not being used.
Yeah.
And now it had gotten to a severe point. And now after the test, that's when they diagnosed, they actualized, they told me that it was rheumatoid. So for rheumatoid, it was the pains. I could not, when I sleep in one position, I'll sleep in that position until in the morning. I cannot turn, I cannot lift my leg, I cannot fold my knee, nothing. It was severe pain, like severe pain. I have not felt pain like that before.
And now for the signs of this particular cancer, other than the pain that you explained to your rheumatologist, was there any other thing that you felt before?
For the cancer, none. There's nothing I felt. Other than the sweats at night, which I attributed to my bed sitter and the heat in the room. Other than the groin area being swollen, there's nothing else I felt. Remember, I am still on treatment for rheumatoid. So everything, even if I felt anything, I will attribute it to, yes, this is arthritis. This is how the medication is working. It's been a year. So everything I would attribute it to arthritis. And I was not, like, cancer was not anywhere in my vocabulary. I could not see anything in that line coming in my direction. Yeah, so those were the signs I felt. And I would sweat profusely. Like, when I wake up, the whole place I was lying on was a pool of water. And for me, again, it's the bed sitter. Yeah, and that is how, those were the signs I saw. Yeah.
Now, after you're now a stage is being given to this cancer, how was it for you still for the journey as well?
The staging for me was hard, because getting the news for the staging was hard in terms of being told that you're at stage 3S just before stage 4. This means this thing has been silently killing you inside. So it's only just one step away from actually doing its worst. And for me, that was a big scare. Because if it's already gone 2 stages without us knowing or us getting to it before it gets to us, how do we stop it now that it's just 1 step away from finality? And I remember after now getting the staging and the actual diagnosis, that is Hodgkin's lymphoma, I started Googling. I was such a fan of Google. I loved Google. I was like, what is this cancer? And every time it would be death, death, death. And I remember after the staging is when Mr. Karaoke came in and told me, I know you love Google. And I know you Google everything you're told, but I want you to tell you to stop. Stop Googling. It is not, you are not a doctor. Stop Googling.
And neither is Google a doctor.
And neither is Google a doctor. And I think that is just, I would want everybody out there to stop Googling. Don't Google your diagnosis. You are not the doctor. And neither is Google a doctor. Absolutely. And after telling me that, he told me, cancer is not a death sentence. And in my head, I'm thinking, what do you mean? He said, my daughter, cancer is not a death sentence. I am here 6 years after my diagnosis. So cancer is not a death sentence. And every time I would go to hospital, his words would come to me, cancer is not a death sentence. And I would wonder, how? This thing is so painful. This thing is, it drains you. It drains you physically. It drains you mentally. It drains every part of you. What do you mean that this thing is not a death sentence? Now, after all that, we went home after the diagnosis and the staging. And now we had to come back for chemo. Yes.
So you started chemo immediately?
I know, I went home for a week and then I came. Doctor asked me, do you want to start it now or do we give you time? And for me, I was like, I need some time to process this. It's just been a roller coaster of news after bad news. I just need a minute to breathe.
All right.
Yeah.
I think we'll, as we now go for, let me talk of treatment, management, as well as that, we'll just take a very short break. And you're making quite emotional. I mean, it's not it's not the first time I'm hearing of such stories, but yours is so emotional, and you're definitely just looking forward to the hope. I know that many people are still being diagnosed of cancer. Many people are still being diagnosed of even rheumatoid arthritis. But I hope and I know that your story is going to give hope to our audience this morning. So we'll be taking a very short commercial break. We will be right back with Milka. Do not go too far.
Great people on earth today are the people who pray. Not those who talk about prayer or those who explain about prayer, but those who take time and pray.
God answers prayers. Why? Because He hears. His ear is not deaf, so He hears our prayers.
Men and women who go before God, we should be men and women of godly standards. So we abide. So that we keep tapping from the source.
But as we pray, it is important to tell God that your will be done in this prayer that I'm praying, or about this item that I'm praying about. Not as I will, yes, this is my will, but let your will be done.
In these changing times and seasons of uncertainty, whom do you look up to?
God keeps His part. Calm rain, calm sunshine. God is still committed.
From one generation to another, and it's not like shifting shadows that He will change, but
Join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Henry Kyra every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. live on Kirk TV for Call Unto Me.
2021, He's still the same God and He has not changed.
Kwenye makala ya jukwaa la moderator.
Tunapojiweka mbele katika mambo yote tunayofanya, huwa tumeenda kinyume na matakwa ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Hasira moja iliyokuwa na Mungu ni kuhusu watu wanaojipenda. Kazi ya Mungu inapaswa kupewa kipaumbele. Hivyo kuna uwezekano ya kwamba tukisikiza ushauri wa Mungu kwa njia inayofaa, tutakuwa sawa kwake, sababu Mungu ana rehema na anatupenda.
Jiunge na moderator wa kanisa la PCA Mchungaji Thegu Mutahi kwa mahubiri, mafunzo na ufafanuzi wa masuala ibuka nchini kila Jumapili ya kwanza ya kila mwezi saa 1:30 jioni hapa Kirk TV.
Tafakari njia zako.
Are you looking to grow your business? Kirk TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@kirktv.org or call 011 00 90 647.
Well, welcome back to Kirk Mid Morning, and I hope that you've been following our conversation. But if you're just joining us, I am with Milka Motuko. She's a survivor of cancer, a psychologist, as well as a cervical cancer awareness advocate. I got it right,
Yes,
yeah?
you did.
So let us just continue. You are now just telling us of the treatment bit of the cancer.
Yes.
But before that, just help us understand this cancer that you were diagnosed with.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. That is cancer of the lymph nodes. Mm-hmm. So what happens is my bone marrow was not corrupted. Mm-hmm. My bone marrow will produce healthy cells. And cells once produced, they are stored in the lymph nodes. Mm-hmm. So when they get to the lymph nodes, then they get corrupted. So now they become cancerous, and that is why it's Hodgkin's lymphoma, because it affects the lymph nodes. Mm-hmm. We have 6 lymph nodes on the neck, on the armpits, and on the groin area, and all of them were swollen. All of them had been affected. Yes.
All right. At least now we have a background of that. Now let us look at now your treatment journey, the chemotherapy. How was it? And at that point now, you just talked over, you had lost hope from the time you let me say you were diagnosed, but you still went ahead to diagnose yourself as well. You just mentioned that you had lost hope. As you began your treatment, probably days after, was there hope now for you?
When I started, at first, no. But I kept encouraging myself, as well as people around me, like my godfather, my family, my friends. People were really supportive. And I think the support kept me going. The constant encouragement, the constant people checking up on you, the constant words of, affirmation, and just, you got this.
Yeah.
As much as in that moment you don't feel like you do, but they go a long way.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're not alone in this. There are people who are rooting for you, there are people who are holding you. And now after my diagnosis, now we were talking of treatment. So now what's the way forward?
Yeah.
We're already here, we know the stage, we know the type of cancer that you have. So what next? And my oncologist had advised us that chemo is the way to go.
Yeah.
She had already put out drugs that she had advised will be good for the staging and the kind of cancer that I had.
Yeah.
So now I was supposed to have chemo every 2 weeks. So the first week is recovery, the second week I do tests, and then I go in for chemo. Yeah. And now this time I'm still in school. I'm in campus.
What year?
I was in second year then.
Okay.
Yes, I think I was finishing my second year. And I have to go for classes. At the same time, I have to go for chemo. And I have to go for tests. Because after the first week of recovery, you have to go for tests. After the second week, you have to go for tests. And it was a bit difficult because I will be in class and I am so nauseated. Yeah. I cannot listen. I am in class and I just need 1 minute to lay my head somewhere. I remember random days, because by the time you're in, that was second year, third year, when I am in that time, you do not have a hostel in school.
Yeah.
And you cannot walk all the way to your house. So I will randomly just go into a hostel and ask a random person that, can I please just lay in your bed for 2 minutes? Just have a nap, 2 minutes.
Those were the effects of the medications and the
Yes,
chemo?
it gives you fatigue. You feel like you are so fatigued you cannot do anything. Yeah, so I will go to hospital and chemotherapy. For me, my first line of chemo, it will take around 6 hours. So the first 1 hour is for initial fluids, that is saline water. And then you have 4 hours of the chemo. And then another 1 hour for water to flush it. So that is a total of 6 hours.
Yeah.
So every 2 weeks, one of my family members, either my sister or my mom, would forgo their everyday activities just to take me to hospital.
Yeah.
And when you know today we're taking Milka to hospital, you cannot do anything else because it's a 6 to 6 thing, or 6 to 5. You will just be seated there by my bedside. And I remember it got to a point where I was feeling like a burden, because mom will not go to work because she has to take Milka to hospital. Kate was supposed to go maybe for an interview. She will cancel and take Milka to hospital. My sister, like there had to be someone with me because I can't go alone. You go in the morning, you have to be there by 7. Because if you're not there by 7, then you won't get a bed in good time.
You were still being treated at Aga Khan or a different
No,
hospital?
at this time I'm being treated at Nairobi Hospital.
Okay.
Yes. My oncologist is also at Nairobi Hospital. Yeah, so we do 6 hours. And at that time you cannot eat anything. So before I started my chemo, my oncologist, advised me to get a chemo pot. So a chemo pot is put on your right hand side, just above the breast, somewhere here. And a chemo pot helps you, instead of having chemo through the veins, you have it through the pot. Okay. So it has a direct link into the heart, whereby they just inject, and this is where the chemo goes in. So this helps because during chemo does not only fight the cancer cells, chemo fights everything in the body. Yeah. And at times you find doctors say that they cannot find your veins, because it is literally fighting everything. Yeah. And now when you have a chemo pot, it helps avoid that. The pricking and looking for the veins, and the other hand, that is what chemo pot helps you with. So yes, we now started the weekly visits to hospital day in, day out, and school is still continuing at the same time. So at this time, I don't even have time for friends because I'm either home recovering, or I'm in the hospital, or I'm in school catching up. Because remember, the days I miss, I have to catch up.
And did you share this probably with anyone at
I
school?
was always very vocal. I was always very vocal about it. I have never, there's no point I've ever hidden my diagnosis or what I'm going through. And I believe it was good for me to be vocal because there's someone out there, just the same way I'm vocal right now, is for me to encourage someone out there. Because there's someone who's gotten a diagnosis today, and they're feeling what I felt in that washroom. And me speaking about it and telling them I've gotten this far is an encouragement to them. Yes, absolutely. So there's no point in my initial treatment, I was not vocal about it. My friends knew, my family knew, I posted it on my socials. It was always out there. Yeah, so this time, when I'm missing classes, I had amazing friends. They will take notes for me. People would send me screenshots of what they did in class today. People would excuse me. I remember my friend Joy. She was very, she really cared for me. When we have a cut, she will go and tell the lecturer, please, my friend is sick. She has cancer. Absolutely. Please, can you give her a takeaway? And I remember there were people on the ground. I always feel favored because I did not walk alone. Like God will just bring people to help me in my journey. And I am so grateful.
And was that now giving you the hope?
That was now. No, the hope was coming. Slowly, the hope was coming. But also, as I am going through, every time I get, I do the chemo, the first 3 days will be so bad because of the nausea, the heavy fatigue. I could not stand the smell of food. Nothing will go inside. And this time I will get panic attacks. Because of course I'm still worried about the uncertainty of life. That, we are doing this, but we don't know how this medication will react to my body. We don't know how this will take me or work for me or against me. So I was constantly in a state of worry. And remember, I'm also feeling like a burden because I have to put my friends through the whole excusing me, taking notes for me, which they did not mind. But me being the patient, I felt like I'm being a lot. The way I have to, my sister has to go out of her normal routine to take me to hospital. So I'm feeling like a burden.
And how were the finances at that particular time?
I count myself favored because my insurance was covering my hospital bills. So for me, it was not a struggle. The money that had been used when my dad passed on, now it had been, like it had come back. The financial year had been, so we had finances for me to get medication, and that was, I am grateful for that.
It's favor.
It is favor, absolutely, because I know there are people out there who struggle with finances. Yes. So I will constantly get panic attacks, as I was saying. I am sleeping at night and I just feel like my heart is racing. And after that, I cannot go back to sleep. I am feeling as if life is getting out of me. This is just, it's not actually happening that way, but it is something that happens in the mind. It's something we call, in my profession, panic attacks. So I will get panic attacks every so often. Like I remember I will go in bed as early as 9, but I will fall asleep at 6 a.m. because I am so scared of the dark. People say that most people die in the wee hours of the night, and I don't want that to happen to me. So I'll rather sleep when I can see light outside than sleep when it is dark. And those were some dark times. And I am a counseling psychology student at that time, but I did not know how to practice my profession on myself. Yes, they say mganga hajigangi. That was actually me in that moment. And I would struggle with anxiety, the panic attacks, the constant worry, the feeling like a burden. And I remember every time I would get something, I would run. Like if I am not home and I can go outside, I will just go sit somewhere the whole day, and my family will get worried. And I remember one day my sister sat me down and told me, Milka, do you think we don't care about you? You are not a burden to us. We worry and we tear down. But after that, I realized that I am not being a burden. It's just me feeling like a burden. By them being my family, by my friends being my friends, they're obligated to do that because I am their friend, I am their sister, I am my mother's daughter. And for me, that was comforting when I came to know that I'm not being a burden, because most patients feel like a burden to their family. They have, especially when I couldn't do anything for myself, they have to take me to the washroom, they have to shower me, they have to change me. And people doing all that for you, most patients feel like they're being a burden to their family, but you're not. I think I will tell them, you're not being a burden. You're part of the family. By virtue of you being a member of that family, they're obligated to do that for you. It's another form of them showing love to you. And accept that. Accept them being there for you. Accept them doing that for you. But it is also okay to not be okay. It is okay to feel like a burden. Just don't let it overshadow you. So
and now, did you, once you realize that you're not a burden, I know that at some point when our caregivers, let me say, when our caregivers see us strong, they become strong.
Absolutely.
And when we as patients see our caregivers strong, we become strong as well.
Yes.
Did you like feel, did you become strong so that your family as well,
Yes.
they don't see that like they are not doing anything to you?
Absolutely. So I had to be strong for them because I could see them being strong for me. I could see that my sister would not cry in front of me but cry behind the curtain. And I would hold myself so that I don't cry.
You also cry behind.
Yeah, I also cry behind. When they go home, I cry. When they sleep, I cry. But I think it's very okay. It is very okay to have those moments because we are human beings. And when something hurts, it hurts. And when you're not okay, you're not okay.
You can't fake.
Absolutely. And I think my sister Kate taught me something through that moment of, let me call it fake strong. It is a good strong because you people are holding each other through it. But at the end of the day, you're both hurting. You just don't want the other to see you. And my sister Kate, we started a slogan that we will win. And we will win meant that when Kate enters the room and you're not okay, you can hug and cry. Because this is happening now. We are hurting now, but that does not mean we will hurt forever.
The end of it.
Absolutely. And she constantly told me, we will win. Rheumatoid arthritis, we will win. Milk cancer, we will win. And that was our slogan all through. And we would hug and break down. Because I insist it is okay not to be okay. It is okay to break down. It is okay to feel the feels in that moment. Because it is not just an all smiles journey. It is not just an all strong journey. No, it is not. Chemo is not easy. And anyone that says chemo is easy is lying. Because chemo puts you down. For me, as I was having my chemo sessions, my eyes would lock. And I could not see anything on eye level. I can't walk because I will hit this table. So my nephews and my nieces would hold my hand. And every time my eyes would work, I will not feed myself because I cannot see the plate. Like I would literally just see the roof, the ceiling, the whole time. And it never gave you a warning that I am coming, it's going to lock right now. No. It just happens. In a blink of an eye, the eyes have locked. And I remember my mom really wanted to figure out what is this, because the doctors were not understanding. My doctor had not seen anything like that. I went to Lions, the eye hospital in Kikuyu. I literally called every medic I know, but no one could explain it. And that was just the reaction of the chemo to my body.
So it does that for different patients?
People are different, and the meds, they react differently to different people. I have not had anyone who says their eyes locked yet, but I know different people have different reactions to the medicine.
All right. And now, how was the treatment like all through chemo? How was it? Were you seeing any hopes at that particular time? Was your doctor probably telling you that there is progress, or how was it?
Well, you can't really tell there is progress. The only difference I will feel is that I was not sweating at night. And that was the only source of hope I could hold on to. Because we did not do any PET scan in between. We just kept on with the hope that this thing is actually working. When I sweat less, we say that it's working. But I had lost weight. I think in a span of a month, I lost 8 kgs. I literally became so skinny that you could not imagine it's me. But one thing which I say is a testimony is, remember when the doctor said my hair will cut, my skin will, none of that happened.
Did not happen.
None of it happened.
Now your Godfather's words.
Absolutely. And for me, that was God coming. That was God, because my hair grew. Till date, my hair has never gotten to that length.
Wow.
It had full volume and length. My skin was glowing. I don't think I have glowed like that before. It was glowing. My nails had become so amazing. And for me, that was God.
Yeah.
And I remember I did 12 sessions. Every 2 weeks, 12 sessions, I finished. And I was excited because it's like a countdown. You do 12, you say, yay, we've done one.
Yeah. 11
remaining. And we kept going and we kept going. But even as we did the chemo, there are days you will go to hospital because they can't do chemo if your neutrophil levels are low, if your white blood cells levels are low. Remember I said that chemo does not only fight the cancer cells, it fights everything in the system. Yeah. So every time you're going for chemo, they have to check your levels. Are they okay? Can you do? If not, you will go home, eat well, and come back. And for someone who's going through chemo, you want to finish. So when they tell you go home, come back, that's more days, and you feel frustrated. But remember my support system, they kept me going. Yeah. So I do my 12 sessions and I finish, and I am excited. I think I actually bought a cake. My family bought, we do cakes, my family bought a cake, and we were like, you did it. 12 sessions down. And I took a month at home, and now I had to do my PET scan. And I did my PET scan, and I went for the results. But now the results were not positive.
And at that time, were you like, now I've gone through all the steps of the chemo, probably when I go for the result, it will be...
Absolutely. I was so hopeful. At this moment, I was like, yes, cancer is not a death sentence. I have done it, guys. 12 sessions down, I've lost weight, but I am okay. Let's go get the results and move on with life. Now let's start afresh. And I get the results, and the cancer is not over. It's cleared in my lymph nodes, but it's moved to my spleen.
Okay.
Yes.
Was it in the same stage?
For the spleen, they did not tell me the stage.
Okay.
I think it was in the very early stages. It had just moved. So now I go to my oncologist and she says that we have to continue with chemo. And now, the first time I started chemo, I did not know what chemo was. So yes, I was scared, but I did not have an idea of what chemo does, how chemo feels. So it was a new thing I'm going into. Scared, but with no expectations.
Yeah.
But this time I have done 12 sessions. I know what chemo feels like. I know the pain. I know the eyes locking.
Yeah.
I know the days when I can't eat, I can't shower. I know the days when I'm having panic attacks in bed. And now you're telling me I have to go through that all over again. And she's saying now you have to do an extra 8 sessions. 8 sessions. I could not imagine. I remember when I was in that office that day, I could not hear what she's saying. After she just said 8 sessions, I went numb. I could not feel anything. There was nothing, no emotion, no nothing. I remember my mom was crying, my sister was still crying, but I was numb. For the first time, I was not feeling anything. I couldn't hear anything. I was just zero, mute. But when I went home, then it started dawning on me that you're actually not yet there. And each time I remember I would question God, because I was like, thank you gave me the strength, but what do you mean I have to go through this again? Are you really there? Am I really walking in this with you? But throughout my chemo journey, I have come to realize that He is there.
Yeah.
Like God is there, even when you feel He is not, He is there. And now I had to do a different regime of chemo, because now this one has to be stronger, because we have to attack it at a more aggressive level.
So that it doesn't spread again.
Absolutely, so that it does not spread again. So after the first session, now this one I will go weekly. After the first session, I will just comb my hair and the hair comes off. No, the hair comes off.
Oh no.
The first one, the hair did not come off. My hair had grown. But in the second one, after one session, I combed my hair and it comes off. My skin darkened. I became so dark. My nails became so dark.
A total opposite of
what happened in the first line. And this time it hit me so much because I felt like I look like a patient. In the first one, I did not look like a cancer patient. But now you do not need to ask me if I have cancer or not. You just look at me and I look like a cancer patient.
Did you have to stop school?
For the second one, yes, I had to stop because it was not it was heavier than the first one. I could not even walk. I was so nauseated. I was so fatigued. And I remember asking my oncologist, what do you mean I have to stop school? When will I finish? And she told me life comes before school.
Yeah.
Life comes before anything else. Because if you're not alive, then how are you going to school? Mm-hmm. And I would cry at home. I would cry because one, life is moving on. People are moving on. My friends are going to the next class. I am still remaining in the same level. And now, not as healthy as I looked. Yeah. Because the first time people tell me, taukaini kama kona cancer. Like, well, but now they don't have to say that. Mm. Like, they look and say, wow, sorry.
Yeah.
And it was tough. Mm-hmm. It was tough. I remember I would go in the first days, before I even would go in, I remember when my mom told me, I was in denial, total denial. Yeah. My hair will shed. My sister tells me, let's shave this hair.
You're like, no.
And I'm like, no. I know it will grow. It won't go further than this. And it got to a point where I was holding my small hair just up here, because that is all that is left. But I am in denial because I'm like, no, it cannot have gotten to this. And I remember that night, Kate came in and told me, Milka, imagine we will win. And I have sisters.
Still the same slogan.
Say the same slogan. And all my sisters were on phone, and my mom came and asked me, can we shave it? And I said yes. And I remember it was a Monday night. My sisters were on video call, every member of my family, and my mom was there. And every strike she will strike, we will cry. Every time I will see the hair fall, we would cry. Because now it actually felt like now we're getting into a worse stage. Mm-hmm. Now we're getting into a more patient-like stage. Yeah. And it was heartbreaking. Mm-hmm. It was heartbreaking, Mama.
So I think we'll sorry.
Yeah.
It's okay. So again, we will be taking a very short break. We'll come back with Milka for more, just looking at her journey and even the healing process as Milka continues sharing her journey. So we take a very short break. We will be right back.
The great people on earth today are the people who pray. Not those who talk about prayer or those who explain about prayer, but those who take time and pray.
God answers prayers. Why? Because He hears. His ear is not deaf, so He hears our prayers.
Men and women who go before God, we should be men and women of godly standards.
Sure.
So we abide.
Yeah.
So that we keep tapping from the source.
But as we pray, it is important to tell God that your will be done in this prayer that I'm praying, or about this prayer item that I'm praying about. Not as I will, yes, this is my will, but let your will be done.
In these changing times and seasons of uncertainty, whom do you look up to?
God keeps his part. Calm rain, calm sunshine. God is still committed.
From one generation to another, and it's not like shifting shadows that he will change, but
Join Reverend Elizabeth Kimani and Henry Kyra every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. live on Kirk TV for Call Unto Me.
2021, he's still the same God and he has not changed.
Kwenye makala ya jukwaa la moderator,
tunapojiweka mbele katika mambo yote tunayofanya, huwa tumeenda kinyume na matakwa ya Mwenyezi Mungu. Hasira moja iliyokuwa na Mungu ni kuhusu watu wanaojipenda. Kazi ya Mungu inapaswa kupewa kipaumbele. Hivyo kuna uwezekano ya kwamba tukisikiza ushauri wa Mungu kwa njia inayofaa, tutakuwa sawa kwake, sababu Mungu ana rehema na anatupenda.
jiunge na moderator wa kanisa la PCA Mchungaji Thegu Mutahi kwa mahubiri, mafunzo na ufafanuzi wa masuala ibuka nchini kila Jumapili ya kwanza ya kila mwezi saa 1:30 jioni hapa Kirk TV.
Tafakari njia zako.
Are you looking to grow your business? Kirk TV offers you a variety of advertising opportunities to suit your budget. Advertise with us today and reach your potential customers countrywide. For more information, email us on sales@kirktv.org or call 011 00 90 647.
Well, welcome back to Kirk Mid Morning. I'm still with Milka here. It's quite an emotional yet an inspiring story. You know, Milka, every time we talk, I'm glad that we are using past tense. We are like, yes. I used to. Yes. This happened. We did. Absolutely. And that is the most inspiring bit of your story. And now, just let us know very briefly how you went through all the 8 sessions, and as you share, you also had to go to India. So just share with us briefly about the 8 sessions, then what led to you now being taken to India.
All right. So after the 8 sessions, now I did the PET scan, and it had recurred in the spleen. So I had to do now the 8 sessions for chemo, that is. And this one I had said was more tougher than the first one. And now I was now looking like a patient, and I did not feel any beautiful. And I remember my dad told me, the God who took you through the first one will take you through the second one. Absolutely. And I remember even through it all, I remember like God gave me strength. I cannot explain how I went through all the 8 sessions, but I was counting down. I was counting down to the very last one, and God took me through it. I remember I would walk into the hospital and the nurse will tell me, "So you know your bed? Go to your bed." I had become a regular, and every time she will say, "Go to your bed," I will refuse it and say, "It's not my bed, because this is not my finality. I know God has good plans for me," and He actually did. And after my 8 sessions, I went for my PET scan, and finally, I was declared cancer-free.
Wow.
Now I was in remission, and I was so happy. I was so happy. And when I went to see my oncologist, she told me I had an autoimmune disorder, that is rheumatoid arthritis. I had cancer, first line and second line. And for her, she would suggest that we go to India for a transplant. A stem cell transplant, that is. And now we had to do arrangements for India. We do the visas, we get approximations of cost. It is cheaper there, but of course coming from our country to there, it is a bit expensive, absolutely. But now I have seen that Nairobi West has brought bone marrow transplant, which is amazing, because most people fly all the way to India for a bone marrow transplant. And us having it in the country is a big step for us. A lot of people will be helped. So after my 8 sessions, after I've been pronounced cancer-free, I am now going to India for a transplant. I go to India, and I remember just before we went to India, my mom gets COVID. The night before we fly out, her results come in positive.
So she can't fly with you?
We cannot fly. And now I can't go alone, because the system asks that I have a guardian.
And it's only your mom that was given the visa?
Absolutely. It's only my mom, because we were under her insurance. It has to be her. So we have to wait. And we wait. We wait for 2 weeks. We go for tests. She's still positive. We wait for another 1 week. We go for tests. She's still positive. And now after the 3rd week, I am positive.
Oh, no.
So I have cancer, and now I have COVID. But again, I say I am favored, because when my mom showed all the symptoms of COVID, I was perfectly okay. Like things you cannot explain how they were working. For me, it's just God, because I cannot explain it. And finally, after a whole month, we're now negative, and we get to fly to India. So we go to India. We book the hotels, we go into hospital, we do all the tests. I do another PET scan. It's confirmed, yes, I'm in remission and I am fit to have the transplant. So when you do the transplant, you first do chemo, 5 consecutive days. Intense chemo. It is chemo not like anything we have in Kenya. So the way the second one hit me, this was like 5 times as bad. So in the first session that I did in India, the small hair that had started growing back, down again. It was so intense, I could not wake up from bed. I remember my mom would literally have to bathe me. She would literally have to change me while in bed. I would vomit everything I ate. And my mom is a person who cannot look at you vomiting. But she had to be strong, because she was the only one I got there. And I remember the oncologist in India will come in and find my mom reading the Bible, and he will tell her, keep praying to your God, because he's the only way out of this. And I remember my bishop, my people from Kenya will call in to check on me. And that was a time when the COVID in India was hitting high levels. Just when COVID was at its peak, people were dying day in, day out. People would call and ask, are you people alive? How are you doing? How is it there? But when we went into hospital, we were confined in a room, and there was no going out, there was no interaction with people outside, and we were just in a safe space. But the days were long. Hours were not moving. And I remember when I was actually after 5 days of chemo, I had to do the transplant. So the transplant, we had to harvest cells. Because my bone marrow was okay, I was my donor. I donated for myself. So they harvest, and harvesting, they have to collect around 2 billion cells. That is a lot. And that is 8 consecutive hours on a bed, just waiting for them to be harvested. No moving, no going to the washroom, no nothing. And my mother would change me in that bed. She will, every time I want to go to the washroom, she will help me while on that bed. And I am so grateful for her, because how would I have done that without her? And after 2 days of harvesting and 5 days of chemo, I finally had to do the transplant.
Yeah.
The transplant, I think, was the hardest part of my chemo journey. It is literally, you see how the drip, you're given transfusion. Now that is transfusion in 2 minutes. Like the whole bag going in 2 minutes. I will literally feel my heart beating. My oxygen levels were dropping. Everything was on standby, because any minute you can go into cardiac arrest. My mom was praying. I have never had her pray that hard. She was praying while crying. But in that moment, I would feel like I am literally going. My heart is beating. My oxygen levels are dropping. I am panting for air. But that was the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And finally, we went through it. And we were grateful. And the days after that were a bit tough. But the doctors there were saying, how your body is recovering, we have not seen this.
Yeah.
Usually, a transplant patient will recover in 3 months. I recovered in 3 weeks.
Wow.
By the end of 21 days, I was totally okay.
You were still in India?
I was still in India. We stayed in India for 2 months.
Okay.
Yeah. So by the end of 21 days, my levels, my platelet levels, my white blood cells levels had started coming back up. Because basically a transplant is rebooting the system.
Yeah.
The old is gone and now the new has come, literally, like the Bible says.
Yeah.
And for me, the old had gone and now I was being given a new start. And I always say I have a second birthday, April 31st. And that is when I was renewed. That is when I was given a second chance at life. And after my recovery, everything went well. But that was the time when India had high COVID cases. So all flights had been cancelled.
Yeah.
There were no flights from India to Kenya. So we are done. Everything has been successful, but now we can't come back to the country. We try with the Kenyan embassy, but after a few days or weeks, we finally got a flight back.
Yeah.
And now we came home, and finally,
What a celebration.
Absolutely. It was such a celebration, coming home cancer-free out of the woods and a successful transplant. And for me, my journey has been God. Coming back home, safe and sound, in full health, it was God. And that is why I am here sharing my story, my testimony. Because my journey is my testimony. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Wow. And I can just imagine, we are looking at 2021.
That was 2021.
Wow.
Yes.
I have no words. As you put it, it's indeed a testimony.
Yes.
And just looking at you, so young.
Yes.
And when someone is telling, when you're sharing that story, I mean, as you put it, when you were diagnosed, you had not even lived half your life.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you telling your story, it's let me just say, it's a testimony, and it's quite inspiring. And you just see how God works.
Yes.
How His favor, His grace and mercies are always renewed upon us.
Yes, yes. Yeah. So that was in 2021, and now I had been so used to sickness. I didn't know what next. I was used to a path of darkness, and now there's light. Now I've been given a second chance at life. So what next? And in all my sickness, I had not thought of what after cancer.
After cancer.
Absolutely.
All right. And now, what would you say is one lesson that you've learned from your journey and from your testimony? And now, as you say, you had not yet just realized or thought of what exactly you'll do after. So how did you now get into advocacy and the issues to do with mental health?
Yes.
Yeah.
So after coming back and me being pronounced cancer-free and me having not thought of what next, people started coming to me just for advice.
Yeah.
Like, Milka, my aunt, my mother has been diagnosed with cancer. What do we do? Can you help us? And that is where I realized I have a ministry.
Yeah.
It's a ministry
Very
because I am speaking from a point of experience.
Yeah.
And I am speaking from a point of professionalism because I have done psychology in school. And now when I tell you this, when I tell you it's okay to be okay, I actually know to not be okay. I actually know how it feels to not be okay. And I have the knowledge, the professionalism to tell you as a counselor, when you're having panic attacks, you can do this. You can breathe. You can take time out. You can cry. You can sit in silence. And for me, that was something that I had never thought. Like me going through the experience that I had gone through, I had never thought was for a greater purpose. But when God has put a purpose in your life, He actually is faithful to actualize it in your life. And I remember in 2022, my godfather, Mr. Karaoke, the one who had walked my whole journey, holding my hand, passed on due to cancer. After almost 10 years of being a survivor, he passed on. And that took a toll on me because he gave me a mantra that cancer is not a death sentence. And now 10 years later, so why are you dying of cancer? But my sister reminded me, in the book of Philippians, I think it's 1:21, I think it's there. It says, to live is Christ and to die is gain. And Mr. Karaoke, dying was gain because he was born again. So living is grace and dying is Christ. So cancer is not a death sentence. And that is my takeaway from it all. Cancer is not a death sentence, but to live is gain. And to die out of cancer is gain, as long as you know the Lord.
Wow. And I want to assume probably just from your journey, from the experience, from your testimony, that's when you now just started creating awareness about cancer, specifically cervical cancer. So you are not diagnosed with cervical cancer, but again you create awareness about cervical cancer. Why this specific cancer?
So most women in the world end up being diagnosed with cervical cancer. But cervical cancer is the only type of cancer as at now that we can prevent 100%. Cervical cancer is prevented through vaccination, HPV vaccine. And most people who are, most ladies, young girls between the ages of 9 to 26 can get the vaccination. So the reason why I am an advocate is because I know how it feels like to be a cancer patient. And I will not wish it on anyone. And if I can save one girl out there, if I can save 2 girls, if I can tell someone to tell someone, tell a mother to tell her daughter, tell a daughter to tell her mother to go to the hospital and just get the HPV vaccine, then we are preventing cervical cancer. Because if we can prevent it, we cannot prevent someone going into getting Hodgkin's lymphoma. We cannot prevent leukemia. But cervical cancer, we can. And if we can, why not advocate for it? So that is why I became an advocate, because I know how it feels to have cancer. And if we can prevent it, why not?
All right. And now you've spoken of the support system, you've spoken of your family, you've spoken of your friends, your doctors. I'm sure you're still very close to your oncologist and definitely, and the rheumatologist. And just that support system, I mean, having walked through all this journey, what would you say are some of the gaps that, as a survivor, you realized, and how can these gaps be filled?
That's quite interesting, because as a counseling psychology student, we always have to do a research for school. So my research in school was the psychological effects of the non-professional caregivers. Remember, nurses are trained. Remember, doctors are trained. But who trains my mother? Who trains my sister? Who trains all the other non-professional caregivers? So there is a gap for the non-professional caregivers. No one is thinking about them. No one has certain reason that these people have not been medically trained to deal with the stress, because it is overwhelming. The thing with a family is, when one part, they said a family is like a body. When one part is aching, the whole family is aching. When finances are being drained from one part, the whole family is suffering. So there is a gap for for the non-professional caregivers, who is looking into them, who is advising them, who is working with them, who is ensuring that their mental health is okay, that they are being told it is okay not to be okay when your loved one is not okay. Yes, and I think that is the greatest gap I have seen in my journey as a cancer survivor.
Right, and definitely we hope that is one of the gaps that can be filled.
Absolutely.
And I think just probably just to share on that, I think we have palliative care.
Yes.
And I think palliative care takes care of both the patient and the caregivers as well. And I think in Kenya, most people have looked at palliative care, or not just in Kenya, worldwide, people have looked at palliative care as end of life.
Yes.
But it's generally not end of life. It's just us looking at now issues to do with mental health, spiritual health, among other issues that these patients go through. And now just to talk about now the rheumatoid, as we raise awareness still about the rheumatoid arthritis, what would you say, and still where is the gap, how can the gap be filled?
Absolutely. Rheumatoid arthritis, first of all, is an autoimmune disorder. It is basically your immune system working against you instead of for you. So it eats up the joints and you get the severe joint pains. They swell and they're so tender. You find most patients of rheumatoid arthritis have deformed hands or legs. Some cannot walk. And at times people do not understand the pain. But arthritis hurts. It is a severe pain that you cannot explain unless you have seen your loved one in it. And I think what the gap I would want people to extend or to fill is just the kindness for someone going through that, because it is really painful. This person cannot walk. Just be kind to them. Offer them the help that you can give them. Yes, and the other gap is children. Children too do get arthritis. Arthritis has been perceived for a very long time as an old person's disease. And it is very true that most old people are affected by it, but children too get arthritis. It is not only an old person's disease. It is not something wrong that they have done to get arthritis. It just happens. Just like how anyone would have a cold, someone would happen to have arthritis as well. At times it's in the family line,